The salt flats stretched, an endless, blinding expanse. Beneath a merciless sun, the crust shimmered, a mirage of false hope. Dust devils danced on the horizon, harbingers of a desolate world. Two figures, small against the immensity, trudged across the baking surface. The first, Kahlan, was a woman hardened by the desert. Her leathery skin, etched by wind and sun, spoke of countless seasons weathered. She moved with a predator's grace, her hand never far from the wickedly curved blade at her hip. Beside her strode Darius, a scholar from a distant city. His pale skin and soft hands betrayed his unfamiliarity with this unforgiving land. He squinted at the horizon, his eyes watering in the glare. "How much further, Kahlan?" Kahlan spat, a brown stain against the white ground. "Patience, scholar. The desert does not bend to your schedule." Darius adjusted his pack, wincing as the straps chafed his shoulders. He longed for the comfort of his library, for scrolls and ink, for the cool shade of ancient trees. Here there was only the relentless sun and the whispering wind, carrying with it the taste of salt and oblivion. They walked in silence for what felt like an eternity. The sun climbed higher, turning the sky into a molten dome. Darius stumbled, his vision blurring. Kahlan caught him with surprising strength. "Rest," she commanded, her voice rough but not unkind. Darius sank gratefully onto the scorching ground. He closed his eyes, willing the dizziness to pass. When he opened them, something glinted in the distance, reflecting the blinding light. "Kahlan, look!" He pointed, his voice trembling with a mixture of thirst and excitement. Could it be water? Kahlan followed his gaze. She narrowed her eyes, her face unreadable. "Perhaps," she said finally, "or perhaps it is another trick of this cursed land." They approached cautiously, their steps slow and deliberate. As they drew closer, the glint resolved itself into a shape, half buried in the salt. It was a metallic object, circular and strangely marked. Darius felt a surge of excitement tingling through his weary limbs. This was no ordinary find. Darius knelt beside the object, brushing away the salt with trembling fingers. Intricate carvings, worn smooth by time and the elements, covered its surface. He traced them with his fingers, his mind buzzing with questions. "What is it, Kahlan?" he asked, his voice hushed with awe. "Some ancient artifact?" Kahlan snorted, her hand resting on the hilt of her blade. "Artifacts are for fools and museums," she said, her tone dismissive. "It is a trinket, nothing more. Best left undisturbed." Darius bristled at her words. "Don't be a fool, woman," he snapped. "This could be a discovery of immense historical significance. We must excavate it, study it." Kahlan's eyes narrowed. "This land is full of whispers, scholar," she hissed. "Whispers that drive men mad. This trinket is best left to its slumber." Despite Kahlan's warnings, Darius's thirst for knowledge outweighed his fear. He insisted on unearthing the mysterious object. It proved to be larger than they initially thought. A disc of polished bronze, heavier than any metal should be. As they heaved the disc free, the salt beneath it crumbled, revealing a dark opening. A gust of stale, cold air rushed out, carrying with it the scent of something ancient and undisturbed. Darius, his eyes shining with excitement, was the first to peer into the abyss. "By the god," he breathed, scrambling to the edge. "Kahlan, it's a staircase leading down." Kahlan approached cautiously, her skepticism battling with a grudging curiosity. She peered into the darkness, her hand instinctively tightening around her blade. "What madness have you unearthed, scholar?" she muttered. Ignoring her, Darius was already rigging a makeshift torch from his supplies. "We can't turn back now," he said, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "This could be the discovery of a lifetime." With a sigh of resignation, Kahlan followed him into the darkness. The staircase, hewn from the same strange metal as the disc, descended into the earth, spiraling down into the unknown. The air grew colder, heavy with the scent of dust and time as they descended deeper into the earth. The torchlight flickered, casting dancing shadows on the smooth metallic walls. The staircase seemed to go on forever, winding down into the heart of the salt flats. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in the darkness above. The air hung heavy and still, as if untouched for millennia. In the center of the chamber stood a structure, a single, towering edifice of the same strange metal. A temple?" whispered Darius, his voice echoing in the vastness. Kahlan shook her head. No markings, no idols. It feels wrong. They made camp at the foot of the metal structure, exhaustion claiming them despite the strangeness of their surroundings. As Darius slept, Kahlan remained awake, her sharp eyes scanning the darkness, listening for any sound in the oppressive silence. The moon, a silver sliver in the night sky, cast a pale beam through a crack in the ceiling, illuminating a section of the metal wall. Kahlan noticed for the first time strange symbols etched into the surface, symbols that seemed to writhe and shift in the flickering light. "They resemble constellations," Darius murmured, tracing the patterns on the wall with his finger. He had woken sometime during the night and was now engrossed in studying the strange symbols. "But they are unlike any I have ever seen," he continued, his voice hushed with wonder. "Perhaps they represent a forgotten sky, a time before time." Kahlan watched him, a flicker of something akin to amusement softening her harsh features. He was a strange one, this scholar, so captivated by the past, so oblivious to the dangers of the present. Yet there was a fire in his eyes, a passion that she could not help but respect. For the first time since their journey began, she allowed herself a small smile. "Perhaps," she said, her voice softer than usual, "or perhaps they are just the ramblings of madmen etched into the walls for fools like us to ponder." Darius laughed, a surprisingly light sound in the oppressive darkness. "Perhaps you are right, Kahlan," he said, turning to look at her, "but even madness can be illuminating." Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. For a moment, the vastness of the chamber, the strangeness of their surroundings faded away. There was only the flickering torchlight and the shared wonder of discovery. The moment was shattered by a sound that sliced through the silence like a blade. It was a high-pitched, inhuman shriek, filled with a raw, primal terror that sent shivers down their spines. Kahlan was on her feet instantly, her hand reaching for her blade. "What was that?" Darius gasped, scrambling back from the wall, his eyes wide with fear. "Silence!" Kahlan hissed, every sense alert. She scanned the darkness, but the torchlight only penetrated a small circle, leaving the rest of the chamber shrouded in shadow. The shriek echoed through the vast space, making it impossible to pinpoint its source. "It came from above," Darius whispered, pointing to the ceiling, his voice trembling. Kahlan followed his gaze. The moonbeam, which had been illuminating the wall, was now obscured, blocked by something large and shapeless that moved just beyond the reach of their light. A cold dread settled in the pit of Kahlan's stomach. Whatever lurked above was not of this world, not something born of flesh and blood. She tightened her grip on her blade, its familiar weight offering a small measure of comfort. The silence stretched, taut with anticipation. Then, a section of the metal floor beneath their feet groaned, the sound like the death rattle of some ancient beast. A crack appeared, splitting the smooth surface, widening with terrifying speed. Darius stumbled back with a cry, dropping the torch. It rolled across the floor, casting grotesque, dancing shadows before finally coming to rest against the wall. The chamber was plunged into near darkness, the only light emanating from the thin sliver of moonbeam that still pierced the gloom. And then they saw it. Rising from the widening chasm, its form shifting and coalescing in the darkness, was a figure. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, but impossibly tall and thin, its limbs elongated and distorted. Its skin, if it could be called that, seemed to be woven from shadows and moonlight, constantly rippling and changing, two glowing eyes burning like hot coals fixed on them, filled with an ancient hunger that chilled them to the bone. Kahlan felt a primal fear grip her, a fear unlike anything she had ever experienced in the harshest deserts, facing the deadliest creatures. This was something else entirely, something ancient and evil, a creature born of darkness and despair. A low growl, guttural and filled with menace, echoed through the chamber. The creature took a step towards them, its form rippling and distorting as it moved, tendrils of shadow reaching out from its body like grasping claws. Darius cried out, scrambling back until he was pressed against the cold metal wall, his eyes wide with terror. Kahlan stood her ground, her hand gripping her blade so tightly her knuckles turned white. She knew it was futile, a desperate stand against an unstoppable force, but she would face this horror with her blade bared. As the creature lunged, a gaping maw of darkness opening in its featureless face, the floor beneath them gave way entirely. Kahlan and Darius screamed as they plunged into the abyss, the creature's chilling laughter echoing in their ears. They fell for what seemed like an eternity, the darkness absolute, the air thick with the scent of dust and decay. Then, with a bone-jarring impact, they landed on something solid, cold and metallic. Kahlan gasped for breath, her vision swimming, her body screaming in protest. She looked around, trying to orient herself in the darkness. They were in another chamber, smaller than the last, but no less strange. The air was thick with a strange, sweet scent, and a faint humming sound vibrated through the floor. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal upon which rested a single object, bathed in an ethereal blue light. As Kahlan struggled to her feet, her eyes drawn to the glowing object, she heard a sound that sent a fresh wave of terror through her. It was the sound of the creature, its claws scraping against metal, slowly, inexorably descending into the abyss.